I've been looking forward to revisiting this episode. I'm a fan of all 3 No Evil episodes, but I remember loving this episode the most. This is the second part of the No Evil trilogy, with the first being Ear No Evil, and the third being See No Evil. These episodes are connected by the Japanese pictorial maxim, see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil. Their plots don't really connect anyway outside of that. There's a lot more to say about this episode, so it's best to just jump right into it. It opens with Jenny being summoned to Japan to deal with some international threat. It's worth noting that the no evil maxim originated in Japan, but I doubt this was an intentional connection. Right off the bat, I love the idea of Jenny blasting around the world to defend different countries. It's obvious that Jenny has the ability to do something like that, but we usually only see her defending the United States. With international travel, there's bound to be a language barrier. Nobody knows every language, so while this would be a struggle for a human, Jenny is a robot. When she asked a citizen what's going on in English, they couldn't understand her. She switched her language settings to Japanese, breaking the language barrier. It should be noted that Janice Kawaii is fluent in Japanese, so they didn't need to change her voice for this episode.
What's wrong?
He points at the menacing gang of monsters. As they hop towards Jenny, the crowd screams. Jenny tells them to get back. They all have to hide. I hate breaking you guys away from the plot so frequently, but it'd be a crime if I didn't mention how great the beginning of the episode looks. The use of color and dynamic framing is among the best in the show. In this overly dramatic cowboy standoff against the monster guys, Jenny just taps their heads, making them poof into dust. She's confronted by a bigger monster who does a King DDD up special. Thinking fast, she asks a random citizen for a pipe, which he just so happened to have in his back pocket. This is my kind of humor. She hits the monster with the pipe, killing it. She eradicates the rest of the population with a part of a statue, like a bowling ball. In a chain reaction, the ball hits Jenny on the back of her head, knocking out her language OS disk and revoking her ability to switch languages. A little girl tries to give Jenny her disc back, but Jenny flies off without knowing she even lost it. There's one last thing I'd like to mention about the beginning of this episode. The monster villains seem to have been based on Jiangshi, or Chinese hopping vampires. Their attire lines up, they hop, and they have huge front teeth like vampires do. While I'm wondering why Chinese folklore monsters are attacking Japan, that's not my main concern. They aren't really shown committing any crimes in the episode. We see crowds of people run from them, but they just kind of stand around, menacingly. They only decide to attack when their existence is threatened by a killer robot. They all seem to have died after poofing away, so I'm forced to assume that Jenny murdered them because they were loitering. Alright, back to the episode itself. Jenny is welcomed back by Brad and Tuck. She gives them gifts, but is unable to communicate with them. They initially think that she's messing with them. They eventually realize that she's just having another crazy misadventure. In her house, Jenny is trying to explain the situation to Nora. Despite a super genius who made a highly advanced robot slave, she couldn't decipher what Jenny pointing at her mouth and speaking Japanese with a look of distress on her face meant that she can't speak English. In an attempt to explain the situation, Jenny and Nora have a baffling game of charades. Whoever came up with the can-can joke here is an absolute genius. The game of charades doesn't work as planned, but it does ultimately lead to Nora checking to see why Jenny can't speak English. Nora realizes that Jenny is missing the language OS disk, but there's a sudden fire which Jenny blasts off to fight. This section is handled in a way that I love. The beginning of the episode opens basically the exact same way, but Jenny's inability to speak changes everything. Jenny tries to organize the chaos, but she can't tell them where to go or what to do. When the fire department shows up, she can't explain how she can help. Instead, the firefighters leave the scene of the fire and head to the library so they can learn how to speak Japanese. Fucking hilarious. Meanwhile, Tuck opens his gift. It has one of those toys that grows from a capsule into a toy creature once you add water to it. In his case, the packaging tells him not to add water to the capsule. I get the gag here, but it doesn't make much sense. Why would you want one of these capsule things if you can't add water to it? That's the whole point of them. He spawns a combination of Godzilla and the Blob, destroying his house in the process. Back to Jenny. She's struggling to hold up a collapsing building, and she has to try and ask bystanders to hook up her hose to a fire hydrant. Her interactions with the bystanders are hilarious, to the point where the misunderstandings are clearly the bystanders' fault. The building burns down completely, and Tuck's monster destroys the water supply, so Jenny can't even use the fire hydrant she was so desperately trying to connect to. The monster shows up, and Jenny tries to fight it, but it's invincible to her punches. Ironically, this monster is the only one who can talk to Jenny, as it came from Japan. The monster actually wants the water out of it because it feels more and more pain as it gets bigger. Jenny uses this opportunity to ring it over the town, extinguishing the fire. It just so happens that the little girl made her way to the American town to give Jenny back her disc just a few hours after she lost it. As someone who's been to Japan, this is the least feasible aspect about this episode. Meanwhile, Brad opens his gift, which can't be exposed to sunlight, and a new threat emerges. I get why this creature was manufactured even less than the one who can't be exposed to water. How could you expect its owners to derive it of sunlight? How would you resolve this? Is it harnessing the nuclear energy from the sun? Did the little girl give Jenny an ever-growing nuke? These questions were never answered, and this is how the episode ends. As frustrating as this episode might be to some of you, I love it. It fits my style of humor, I love the art and juxtaposition in it, and it's just a really cool episode in general. Everything I love to see in my life as a teenage robot is present in this episode, and it's definitely one of my favorites. I've brought attention to this before, but the Japanese version of this episode was put in a position where they couldn't exactly keep the plot the same. They switched everything around. Jenny can't speak Japanese anymore, and she can only speak English. While most of the other episodes of the Japanese dub were completely lost, we were lucky enough to find this one.
What's wrong?
Look over there!
Yeah, clearly the dub voice actress wasn't as fluent in English as Janice Kawaii was in Japanese, so the Japanese dub is a hilarious mess. Makes you wonder if they ever tried to get Janice Kawaii to be the Japanese dub voice of Jenny. It's not unheard of in animation. Well, that's all I have to say about this episode. I love it, and I hope to see you guys talking about your thoughts about it in the comments below. I've been your narrator, YoshiFan2010. Thanks for watching!
Thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, leave a rating. If you want to reach us, leave a comment. Or check out our other platforms. Links are in the description.
Hey, little homie, can you piss out this fire for me?
Yeah, sure, Jenny, I'll piss out that fire for you, girl. I'll piss it out for you.
Oh, this piss feels so fucking good!